everybody. Welcome back to the Queens Lair. I am your host, Kellie Miles, and we are in Women's History Month. And I think it's just so exciting for us to get together and talk about how we can encourage one another. So, the topic for this episode is staying encouraged on your journey, because we all have a story, we all have a challenge or obstacle that we've had to go through, and some of us are still going through. But it's so encouraging to know that somebody else has paved a way for us, have paved a way to be able to say, try this because this might help you where you are. And to get that encouragement and that empowerment and that direction and guidance is just amazing. So we have some wonderful queens that are joining the show today, and I'm going to bring them on, and they're going to share their story with you of some of the challenges they were faced with and how they overcame those challenges and are victorious today. So let's bring them on now. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hello,
Doing
hello.
great.
Good, good. It's so good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So let's just find out a little bit about who each of you are. And we'll start with you, Miss Verlaine. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Okay, thank you. I am an author and a coach. I help people to transform their lives into a new way of thinking and being so that it becomes much more harmonious. And I've written 4 books that are in that genre. One is Ending the Battle Within, and Daughter of God, and Endless Shades of the Mystical Rose. Many different books, and there's more coming. But I love the ability to help people. And I am in the area near Pasadena where the Rose Parade is held. And it's a beautiful day, and I love being here.
Well, wow, that's wonderful. So you have a lot of experience when it comes to writing.
A
That
lot.
is that is the beautiful thing. So take note of that, ladies, and those of you who are watching. All right, so we'll go ahead and go to you, Miss Sheyel. Tell us a little bit about you, where you are from, and who you are, and what you do.
Okay, I am Sheyel Rorie. I am from Philadelphia. I too am an author and have written, a couple of books, and I also help other people become self-published authors. I am a mother of 3 children, and my wonderful grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren, and
Wow.
they are what keep me going.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, 5 grandchildren will definitely keep you going. I have one, and he has me on my toes, 9 months, 9 months old, and I'm running around this place. No, don't touch that. Get over there. You're moving too fast. So they definitely will keep you on your toes. Thank you for sharing. All
Yeah.
right, let's go to you, Miss Anita. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anita Mckaney. So nice to be here. Thank you, Kelly. So I am a missions minister as well as an author, along with the other ladies. And I'm also a nursing professor as well as a women's rights consultant. So I do a lot of things and go a lot of places as a humanitarian, as a missions minister. So I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Well,
from
thank you so.
Ohio. I forgot that part.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, so it seems like all of you guys have the common theme of being an author. And I actually am a co-author for an anthology of 33 women myself. And I think that it's great because it's another way of escape. It's another way of being creative. It's another way of getting our stories out. And I think that's a great point to make to those who are watching is sometimes, even if you're not writing a book as an author, just to write, to journal, to kind of get
Yeah.
some of those feelings out, to show your emotion on those page. And you never know, it could just be your way of pouring out as a release, and it could also be a book. So
That's
that's
nice.
just a little plug there. So, but thank you so much, ladies. So, we're discussing challenges today that we've all gone through. We all have some kind of story. And I think it's important that people hear our stories to see that they are not the only ones who are dealing with or going through the challenges and obstacles that they are. And to see you, beautiful, wonderful ladies here who have gone through some challenges and have made it through. Hopefully, you can encourage somebody else watching. So let's just start with, we'll start with you, Miss Sheyel. Tell us a little bit about your story and what challenges you have faced as a woman in this journey called life.
Well, the biggest challenge that I experienced was the loss of my husband, who was
Mm,
my best friend, and that kind of started to frame my life in terms of everything that I do now. He died due to complications of cancer,
mm,
and one particular day, he was in a lot of pain. He was always in pain, but this one particular day stood out. Um, I can't go into all the details that was happening within that day, but he, you know, kept telling me how pretty I was and how much he loved me. And I was used to that, because he told me that he loved me, every day. But he was trying to get into bed, so I helped him in the bed and tucked him in and kissed him on his forehead, and he never woke back up. He,
mm,
died in his sleep, and that was very devastating for me. So that was, quite of a challenge for me, and it affected my life for a few years. I still cry, during
Of
especially
course.
during the holidays, and it's been
yeah.
10 years, but I still feel it during the holidays.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely a challenge. It's a different kind of feeling when you lose your husband, when you
Hmm.
lose your life partner. And, like you said, you were used to waking up and him telling you how beautiful you are and, those things. And it's hard and it's very hard. And there's so many people that have gone through that need to hear your story. So I thank you for sharing that. And we're going to hear some of these stories of the other ladies, but I want to come back and find a little bit more information about how you got through that and how you are where you are today. But we'll go to you, Miss Verlaine. Tell us a little bit about your story and what your challenges were as we go through this life, this journey called life.
Yes. My first major challenge was getting my feet cut in a lawnmower. I was mowing with my brother and my father, and it was a big property in Iowa where we lived. And I went up a hillside and I turned around and my brother was behind me and I walked into his mower.
Oh,
And he was just a little guy. He was 3 years younger than me and I was about 12 years old. And it was quite difficult. We went to the hospital. I lost my little toe, and the top of my foot was cut. And it took me 5 weeks the first time, and then I had to go back to the hospital for 3 more weeks with skin grafts. And I was in a wheelchair for about a year.
mm,
So it was very disturbing to my childhood. But what I look at, and I think is very important for people that are having any kind of struggle or upset or accident, is what can you do in the midst of it that makes you feel good? And maybe it's about helping others. And I remember going down the hallway in my wheelchair I was in the children's area and going in and visiting the other kids and just to smile at them and talk and ask about them seemed to help. And so I learned from that and from that quiet time so much about myself. And I wrote a lot of journaling at that time. And then when I was
mm,
27 and had a fabulous job as a writing for a advertising agency, I went down to get my car and there was a small room with two doors and a man passed me as I was going toward the door. He was dressed in a guard uniform and I heard a voice in my head say run. And that, ladies, is your intuition, okay? Your inner knowing and your
mm,
spiritual guidance. And if you don't remember anything else that I say, listen to your intuition, and more importantly, obey it.
Mm.
Because the voice said, run, I started arguing. Run? Why should I run? It's late. I don't know why I should run. And before I could get to the door, he had his arm around my neck and a knife at my throat. And then he started pushing me toward the other door, back across the room, the other door. And there were two elevators, the one I had come down in and the one in front of us. And it came down and opened up, and two men started coming out. And he transferred the knife to my back and stabbed me in the back. And then he pulled me into the elevator, and I started slumping to the floor when my lung collapsed. And I thought I was dying. And I said to myself, I didn't know where it came from, but I said, Dear God, if I should live, please make me an instrument of your peace. And
Wow.
I didn't even know that that came from Saint Francis, or really hadn't heard it before. And so went up to the next floor and then went to the hospital, and like they stab you in the front then to get the tube in to have your lung reinflate. So the result of that was, when I got out of the hospital about a week later, was to be afraid and to become very paranoid. And I was, if someone was walking behind me, I'd get against the wall and let them walk by. And it was terrible. I couldn't do my work. And it was about 6 months later in March that the police came into the building and said, everybody out of the building. And I said, what's going on? And he said, bomb threat, 15th floor, which was our floor. And so I just said, okay, I'm going back home. And home, where I had graduated from high school and everything, was in Carmel, California, which is like a little English village. But I learned from that you have to listen.
Yeah.
You have to listen, and you have to obey. And I mean instantly. If you're on the road and you're here, turn the wheel of your car, you do it right then. The first thing you hear is your intuition, is your spiritual guidance. Anything after that is your mind arguing. Okay, so that's the challenges. There were many accidents, and when we talk about how you get through it, and what I've learned, I had a whole idea about life that kept me unaware. I was like floating over my body. I wasn't aware of things the way I needed to be. And so we learn and we survive. And guess what? The most important thing is to keep going. Ask questions within yourself and of anyone that has wisdom. What am I getting out of this? What is it doing for me to be in this state? And how can I change it?
Wow. Wow, that's really good. That's really good. Just turning it into a positive, or making a positive out of the struggle that you're going through but it's challenging to do that. It's really hard. It's not an easy thing to do. I want to go into that more, but I want to hear Miss Anita's story. I want to hear a little bit about you and what your challenges were, and how you have made it through this journey called life.
Yeah, so like Miss Verlaine, my challenge came at an earlier time in my life as well. And so I was fresh out of high school, and I had great dreams and aspirations. I was really driven to go into college. And in 11th grade, I decided, that's it. I'm going to be a nurse. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I was like fast tracked to nursing school. So I was super excited to get into like a great Ivy League institution. And it was my first choice, and I had a full ride to a state college. I could have gone to Ohio State University, but I got accepted to Case. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Case. And so I did. And I went there, and I was full of hope and full of aspiration, because I was the first of my family to go to college, period. And so I was very excited about it. Started there, went to classes and did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And I ran into a person there at Case when I didn't do well on some paper or an exam or something, that told me, you can't be a nurse. That's not really, this isn't going to work out. You're not smart enough. Like, you really just can't do this. And it deflated me more than I could ever imagine, because our words are so very powerful. And that person saying that to me really took the wind out of my sails. And for a little while, I was not driven anymore. I was feeling hopeless. You know, we get to this place where somebody just pops your balloon, and then, you know, you can't really move on from there, but God, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am a person of prayer, and I really took it to the Lord, and I was like, you know what? If it's your will for me, then this is going to happen. Like, I don't know how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And so I left Case because I couldn't anymore, right? It was financially draining. It was emotionally draining. And I transferred to a different school after I picked myself back up off the ground, and through prayer and a lot of time just patting myself on the back and telling myself it's going to be okay, went to a different school, went ahead and got my degree, went back to school, got a master's degree. And I told myself, you know what? It's great that I've been able to achieve something and like overcome something. But I look back at the women who went before me who achieved great things as well. And that was one of my motivating factors. You know, people like Mary Eliza Mahoning, right? Back in the 1800s, when no person this shade was going to nursing school. And I became what I was because I kind of rode on her shoulders and a lot of other women's shoulders, right? To become something that I thought was going to be taken away from me because of what one person said. Because sometimes it's that one person that just, you know, kills your dream. And so truly, I was able to recall that and not only do that, but now I give back. Now I help other nursing students become nurses, and now I'm a professor of nursing. And so I went from, you know, one place of despair and discouragement and just emotional depletion, right, to now becoming a mentor, now becoming a person who can say, you know what, if I can do it, you can do it. And I tell you, I really pour into my students and I encourage them because of the discouragement that I got, right? Because someone said something cruel, I took that and I used it as a stepping stone instead of the stone that was meant to destroy me. And so I just rely on the scriptures, you know, how it says in Proverbs, how it tells us that, you know, we make our own plans for our own lives, right? We try to map it all out and it's going to be like this. It's going to be awesome. And my eyes were full of stars. I was just that girl. And when that happened to me, I had to go back to the word and say, you know what? I made my own plan, but God directs my steps. And that is what I have to realize, that it's already mapped out for me. So I praise God that today I'm able to teach other nursing students and also take care of 10 girls in Ghana who are going on their way to school.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. And it's just such an encouragement because, you know, like the theme is here, it seems as though the majority of what we go through in this life called journey, this journey called life is dealing with loss, whether it's the loss of a loved one, the loss of health in some capacity, the loss of confidence, the loss of hope, inspiration. And when you're dealing with these things, we all face it, right? We all face some kind of something that's causing a negative impact, either on our mindset, on our mind, or something that comes in physically that bothers us. And the biggest thing is, how do we get through that? How do you get through it? Because we all face it, but how do you make a positive out of that? But before we go into talking about how do we take those lemons and make lemonade, let's just look at this quick video. And this video is going to share with you some of the challenges that some of the other women in history has gone through. And as you already know, they too have made it through and stayed encouraged. So check out this video. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, born in Brooklyn, New York, March 15, 1933. Her journey included facing discrimination for being a woman.
There was not a single firm in the entire city of New York that would offer me a job.
Because of those challenges, she leveraged the law to help level the playing field and became a trailblazer, making her mark on the United States law. RBG supported women's rights and advocated for all women. All right, everybody, you are watching the Queens Lair, and I am your host, Kellie Miles. So we were talking a little bit about the different challenges. As you can see, some of the challenges that the women in history have gone through, they stayed encouraged and they pressed and made it through. And some of these challenges that we heard today from the ladies who are here sharing their stories, they've gone through those challenges. But the key thing is how they go through those challenges. How do you stay encouraged when you're dealing with all of those things in the midst of it? So I want to talk to you ladies and talk about when you're in the midst of it. How do you get that mindset where you take it and say, you know what? I'm going to make something positive out of this. So we'll start with you, Miss Verlaine, and we want to just talk a little about, if you could just give me like maybe 1 minute and share with me a little bit about what do you do to stay encouraged when you're in the thick of it?
Well, I think it's very difficult to do that. It's in the midst of it, like after the stabbing, I was afraid of everything. I became paranoid, and I went back to Carmel, and there was nowhere I felt safe. And when I would watch a movie that was scary, my hands would sweat, and I couldn't watch TV. We turned off TV, and so the first thing that started to help was walks in nature. And finding a peaceful place to be that you felt encouraged. Luckily, I had my love of many years with me, and he was very helpful. But that inner fear was still there. And I went to a class, a workshop. And so if you hear of things that might be helpful, be sure to do it, because this was a neurolinguistics programming workshop for 3 days. And of course, in person, because we didn't have Zoom then. And he asked for a volunteer in a small part of the program that he was going to do an integration technique. And I raised my hand and, choose me. And so what he took me through is what I have been using in my coaching and my life ever since. And it's the idea that there's many different parts of ourselves, and those different parts all have different beliefs. They are holding on to beliefs. And so the idea is that you say there's a part of you that everything now is afraid. You're fearful. So what is that doing for you? Well, it's keeping me safe. Okay, there's another part of me that wants to be free again. I want to go traveling. I want to be able to go places by myself and not feel afraid. So how can we bring them together? And there's this integration technique that looks so well, because you look at the advantages of staying imprisoned by these beliefs on one side, and you can ask the other part, okay, how can I be safe? And you send them to the creative part of you to come up with ways in which you can be free and safe. Okay, not either or. It's like what happened with our dear lady here about nursing. There was a part of her, I believe, shows up outside of her to say what she is afraid of, which is she's not meant for nursing, because there's parts of us that are yes and no about everything, right? And she decided to make it a little easier on herself and bring it together. And for me, as I brought it together, these different parts, and that's what makes it easier when you're hurt or you're sick or you don't have money, to know that there's a part of you that's making it happen that way. Talk to them. Talk to them.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I don't mean to cut you off. It's just amazing to me how other people can try to interject their personal opinions into someone else's life. And it's so crazy that many times we take that on and we internalize it and allow it to define who we are. And that is not so. I love this.
Yes, but the thing is, it was inside of her, or it wouldn't have shown up outside of her. It's hard to get it in the meantime, because I've done it. I've cleared something like that by doing the integration, and that person disappears that was bothering me. I mean, they either disappear or they change.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that I love doing it with people. I was able to be invited to Japan and Hong Kong and different places, but Japan
Yeah.
particularly, and do integrations with people in 1 hour. It shifted their whole mind because
Wow. That's
you
beautiful.
release
That's
that
beautiful.
hold and
Uh-huh.
that argument. That's what they keep fighting with each other. I've had people that are sick and they've got, I say, okay, one hand made you sick. There it is. So they
Well,
start
Miss
pounding on the part of them that made them sick. They said, "Oh no, no, no! We're going to talk to that part.
Yeah,
I don't want
yeah.
to talk to him. Okay, what's
Yeah,
the
and I
advantage?"
I just I love what you're saying. I think it's amazing. I want to hear we're running out of time here, so I want to try to
Mhm.
get a little more info from the other ladies too. And I'll say this to you guys watching: if you want to hear more of this conversation, make sure you check out the after party, which is going to be on our YouTube page. I'll put that up for you guys a little later. But we'll jump to you real quick, Miss Anita, before we get ready to close out, and then I also want to hear from you, Miss Sheyel. So just tell us a little bit, just in short, how do you stay encouraged? Like how in the midst of it, while you're going through it, how do you stay encouraged?
Yeah, that's excellent. So as I mentioned, like in Proverbs 16, I think it's verse 8, how like your heart is deceitfully wicked, right? So
Mm,
when somebody tells you that you're bad and you're evil and you're sinful, like yeah, like Miss Verlaine was saying, like that becomes who you are. And so you have to change the narrative. You have to become a new creature in Christ. You have to literally get a new identity, if you will, right? And
Exactly.
now redefine yourself and tell yourself who you are. My mom made me stand in the mirror, okay, and
mm-hmm.
say, I'm Anita the nurse. I am Anita the nurse. And I had to say it every day. And I saw myself telling myself who I was
Yeah.
because I wasn't that person yet, but I was becoming her. I was
Yes.
becoming her based on all of the women who had gone before me, based on all of those things. And so, literally, like that became who I was. And more so, it became a whole ministry. I founded Lifestyle Image Network, a whole collective of women who are discipling and mentoring other women, because a lot of times we hear all of those words in our ears, and we swallow it, we take it in, and it becomes who we are, and we don't have to accept it. We don't have to say this is going to be who I am. And so having foundational scripture, staying in prayer, being like the person that you are about to be for yourself is really
Mm,
powerful. It's empowering, and then empowering others. Like for example, the women in Afghanistan right now have no access to education. I am just emblazoned with anger as a human
wow.
rights consultant, because how do you take away someone's right to
Yeah.
learn? And
So
so,
staying, go ahead, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
So
right.
staying positive,
It's
having the right mindset, making
yeah,
sure you know who you are, and making
exactly.
sure that you have that internal connection with yourself and fight for that. So let's go to you real quick, Miss Sheyel. Tell us a little bit of how you stay encouraged in the midst of it.
My writing, of course, and helping other people to share their stories, that really keeps me going. I have a mentor who kind of brought me out of the hole that I was in. And then, just recently, I have a relationship with a woman who is like a mother figure to me because my mom passed a couple of years ago. So, those relationships are very important. And then lastly, my grandchildren, who I
Mm,
absolutely live for, they have, helped me to understand, my purpose. And so I kind of build everything that I do around them so that they will know who I am, when I'm gone.
yeah, yeah. And that's good. That's good. And so, I really appreciate you ladies for coming on. You guys have really dropped some really great nuggets. And I appreciate you guys for sharing your stories and being so transparent and vulnerable so that somebody else might be able to hear your story and be encouraged on their journey. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank
Mhm.
you, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right. So we have come to the end of the show, and I just want you guys to pay attention to first understand that don't let outside people and outside factors affect who you are. Know that all things work together for them who love God and who are called according to his purpose. All things, the good and the bad. Take that you're dealing with and make a positive out of it so that you can pour into someone else's life, because they need to see how strong you are and that you got through it, because that's what's going to help them to gain strength where they are when they're dealing with it as well. So again, make sure you guys stay tuned for the next episode coming up. We're going to be talking about healthy living and dealing with different challenges that we as women go through in our bodies. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And also check out our YouTube page, because our YouTube page is where you're going to be able to find the extended version, the after party of these discussions and these conversations, and also other episodes. So take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the Queens Lair. Stay tuned for the next episode.